Yeah, that visit to Berlin capping Emmanuel Macron's first full day as president of the French Republic, speaking there in the company of German Chancellor Angela Merkel. Macron talking of a critical moment for the EU, the two of them announcing a joint cabinet meeting that will take place in July. A review of the directive on posted workers inside of the EU, that is to say, people who are paid for doing jobs in one country while being paid to do them in another. Macron talking about how he wants to go fast, wants to reform, and also a review, perhaps, down the line of EU treaties. We're in the France 24 debate, and we're going to be talking about Macron's first full day on the job, which, by the way, also includes the naming of a new prime minister. His name is Edouard Philippe, a close ally of former Prime Minister Alain Juppé, who hails from the Les Républicains party, with legislative elections scheduled for mid-June. Will the new prime minister be serving for 5 weeks or 5 years? Will Macron succeed in breaking the old left-right divide? The country's youngest ever president has vowed to go fast and loosen labor law by decree, and that was music to the ears of Angela Merkel, you might say, ahead of her September re-election bid. Merkel, by the way, bolstered by her win in Sunday's regional elections in Germany's most populous state, North Rhine-Westphalia. More broadly, can France's 39-year-old president offer solutions to the fears and imbalances that are being felt, not just in France, but across the continent? With us, parliamentary candidate for Emmanuel Macron's En Marche party, Claire TASSADIT-HOUD. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. La République En Marche.
La République En Marche. That's right. You changed the name, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Bruno Bernard is a member of the new prime minister's Les Républicains party here in Paris. Thank you for being with us. Ludovic Subran does not grace this studios with his presence often enough. Chief economist at Euler Hermes. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
And from Berlin, the author of the best-selling Debt in the 21st Century. I guess you could call it an answer to Thomas Piketty's Capital in the 21st Century. Daniel Stelter, the founder of Beyond the Obvious think tank. Thank you for being with us.
Good evening.
Let me begin with you, Daniel. What you just heard there from Emmanuel Macron. First of all, the body language we saw in that encounter. There, you heard the Chancellor quoting Hermann Hesse, talking about joie de vivre. Is there a new spark in the Franco-German relation?
Well, the short answer is clearly yes. Everyone is happy that Monsieur Macron has won the election, and therefore clearly there is hope that now Europe can move forward and overcome its problems. At the same time, we are pretty aware of the fact that in the first round of the election, more than 40% of the French people voted for Euro-skeptic politicians or candidates. Therefore, I think there is hope. There's more hope in Germany around French reforms than there are expectations concerning the proposals of Monsieur Macron making any difference to the future of the Eurozone, especially given the fact that most of these things might more be equal to giving a recommendation to someone who's severely ill to do some more sport. I think first we have to come up with solutions of making the patient healthy again before we can start and making, things like a joint finance minister and so on, because the problems are much bigger. And Mr. Macron, he pointed out that he's not going to see Eurobonds as a way of socializing or mutualizing past debts, past sins. But clearly, if we want to fix Europe, and we need to fix Europe, we have to find a solution to two questions. One question is, how do we deal with too much debt? And I'm not talking about government debt, I mainly talk about private debt. And secondly, how do we make countries competitive again, which have lost competitiveness over the past 10 years due to the fact that they were linked into the Eurozone?
Due to the fact they were linked into the Eurozone, Ludovic Subran, for your work, you go back and forth a lot. Do you have the sense that the French are ready?
I do think the French are ready, otherwise they wouldn't have elected President Macron. The real question is, I think the Germans want a clear set of reforms to level the play field. They want a strong France, and for them, a strong France also means, you know, a lower deficit, which is something that will be hard to achieve in the first year of this presidency because of the measures that were announced, and some of them were not financed. But it also means a real commitment to Europe. And on the latter, I think that Emmanuel Macron and Chancellor Merkel certainly agreed on many points. You know, in the program, there were things that I think are really moving things forward, such as the Buy European Act, but also the idea that you can actually connect the companies to the public bidding more, you know, preferentially, just like President Hoover did in the States in the 30s. There are also this idea of looking into the budget for the Eurozone, but also fixing the Eurozone. Of course, we've done tremendous progress, but always on the back of a crisis. And the idea is that we have a little bit of time right now. Things are looking slightly better to do the reforms that could be necessary to bring us to the next level. And this is where I think there are a lot of nuances between what the French and the Germans have to agree on before they even started.
You surprised when we heard in that press conference Macron talking about better protection of EU workers. You mentioned that Buy European Act.
I think President Macron is really at the crossroads between what one could call protection and promotion. He wants to promote France and promote economic growth. He always says, you know, let's produce first before we share the benefits of production. But he also certainly wants to make sure he protects, because he heard the call for anti-globalization. He heard the inequality rising. And so I'm sure, economically speaking, that's why a lot of people are comparing his reform program to what the Scandinavian countries did in the mid-90s, also what Blair and Schroeder called for in 99. There is a real social democracy pillar, which is protection and promotion, flexibilization and securization of jobs, but also of economic progress and mobility, which is, I think, at the core what the Germans are voting for and certainly betting for when they see the success of Emmanuel Macron.
What did you think, Bruno Manin, when you hear about this Buy European?
It's a very nice idea on paper, and it's been promoted by Emmanuel Macron, but also François Hollande and Nicolas Sarkozy before him. The thing is that it never happened. So there must be some way it's been blocked in the EU machinery. I don't know what it is, but it seems that goodwill from a French president is not enough.
Not enough, but is there a wake-up call now with, of course, what's happened with Brexit and such?
Well, we'll see about that. Not sure.
You sound skeptical.
I am.
Claire TASSADIT-HOUD, is this time going to be different or not when it comes to shaking up Brussels?
It definitely will. I'm afraid to say that, yes, it never happened before, but we never had such a president before. So,
and Nicolas Sarkozy was a lot stronger than Emmanuel Macron will ever be.
I don't know what you intend by stronger, but as far as I'm concerned, I would say that
well, he wasn't elected by default.
We need Europe. We need Europe. Germany needs Europe. France needs Europe. We can easily realize that we need to protect our jobs. We need to reinforce the foreign investment in Europe. We need to protect our countries against fiscal arrangement between states. We need to reinforce our defense within the frontiers of Europe. And this is what we have. We have more in common with Germany than differences. So we have all to win to work together and make sure that we can ensure this European build together this new European agreements.
Daniel Stelter, I wanted to ask you about that cover of German newsweekly Spiegel, which has on it "Dear Friend," but of course when you say "dear," you say "teurer," it means costly. And if you don't get it, by the way, the caption also reads, "Emmanuel Macron will save Europe and Germany's going to pay for it." Is that really the thinking right now on the other side of the Rhine?
Well, you know, by some people, yes. But I think the most part, I think actually the title of the Spiegel is nice, but it's misguided, because in the end, even if we were to pay for it, it wouldn't fix the euro. I think that's a fundamental problem. You know, we clearly, the German economic policy is totally misguided, I have to tell you. I think we are obsessed with savings, we are obsessed with export surpluses, and buy Europe could even buy more German stuff, which of course would not be helpful for the eurozone. On the other hand, I'm deeply convinced that just having more money redistributed across Europe and having more joint investments is not going to change the problem, okay, the problem away. That's a fundamental issue. Therefore, in my view, is we might end up with lots of transfers like the north of Italy and the south of Italy for more than 100 years without fundamentally addressing the problems Europe is having. And therefore, I hope Monsieur Macron is right when he says he comes back in 5 years' time. But we have to clearly see if we don't address the fundamental issues, which Monsieur Macron's program actually is not doing, and the German policy is also not doing, we run the risk of having a very different kind of political landscape 5 years down the road. So we have now a time window. I think the Germans would be willing to pay, but the point is, just by paying more, we are not going to fix the problem.
Just by paying more, we're not going to fix the problem. Ludovic Subran, you were saying to us before we went on air that there's this discrepancy. It's an election year in Germany. There's a general election in September. This discrepancy between what business people want and what politicians want.
Well, I think it's, you know, we have to get the diagnostic right. You know, we just said something very clear, which is we've just come out of a lost decade in France. You know, let's be very clear when it comes to GDP per capita, investment, jobs, profits for the companies. We're exactly the same level we were in 2007. So there is...
And wages are 5% below that level at this point.
Correct. But in Germany, very interestingly, there are a lot also of the signs of a lost decade, but on different indicators such as productivity. Such as, you know, Germany, for example, has an issue right now, which is how do you make sure that going forward, Germany has asked workers in the mid-90s to tighten the belt and to actually save money for their long-term retirement. And today, this same money that has been saved, that has cut the disposable income back then in the mid-90s, is actually not yielding any money because of the very accommodative stance of the European Central Bank. And so the German politicians have to reassure the German private sector, households and companies that they are voting for them, that they are helping the private sector grow. So the manifestos of both the SPD and the CDU are out in June, and a lot of the talks are about taxation. Mm-hmm. Will there be a drop in corporate tax in Germany? A lot of the talks are about the investment gap. Will there be finally support to investment, be it in critical infrastructure, not necessarily the roads and highways, but also the digital transformation of Germany. And all of that is really what's going to make sure that there is more inclusive growth, because inequalities and poverty have risen in Germany. And so the idea, what I find fascinating here, is that what could change the game is that Emmanuel Macron wants to fix France first. And once you fix France, then you go high. You go at the level of Germany, because Germany has been waiting for too long. And so now I think the real question, when the rubber will really hit the road, is when France manages to deliver on the weaknesses and solve some of the weaknesses. That's when the German will actually consider us as peers again, and we can move forward together. But the private sector, companies have always been and will always be much more European than governments. Suppliers, you know, clients are all over Europe. And so there is no such thing as, you know, being segregated in a way.
Daniel Stelter, on this point, does it? It's an advantage for Merkel to have somebody who's pushing for all the stuff that the Germans have been asking for a long time. At the same time, when Merkel, who's standing next to her, the fourth French president that she's had since she's been in office, and he's 39 years old and is the face of renewal, is that going to work against her in the general election in the fall? Could there be Merkel fatigue?
Well, I think there are... But no, the short answer is no. I think it's not going to work against you. There is some fatigue, but clearly, as we can see with Mr. Schulz, it's difficult to come up with an alternative. I just wanted to reconfirm what was just said before. I think medium term, we could be much more optimistic on France than on Germany for many reasons. One reason is clearly the underinvestment we had in infrastructure in Germany. The second point is the demographic development. As you know, the German workforce is about to shrink pretty fast. We have now our own issues with immigration. So, and in the end, also we have to keep in mind that most industries we have in Germany are older than, than 100 years. They were all founded in the emperor's time. So if you really look at Germany, I think Germany, everyone thinks about Germany as being so strong. In reality, I think we are fundamentally weak and have much problems, but we are still covered right now by a certain boom out of exports. But fundamentally, we have big problems, and therefore France should not think that having a transfer union is a solution, because in the end you might end up paying for us.
Okay. Well, it's a problem I guess we'd like to have at this particular point in time. I want to turn...
I doubt that one.
when we could be, because that press conference, we're running a little bit short on time, and we can't get away without mentioning, of course, the big announcement of the day. And we were even wondering if we would have a French president who might even travel to Berlin without a prime minister, because the horse trading went on to the last possible moment earlier in the day, the announcement coming like around just before 3 p.m. local time. Let me ask you on this. Claire TASSADIT-HOUD, you have this prime minister, Edouard Philippe. He is not a member of your party. He's a member of Les Républicains. He's the mayor of the city of Le Havre, and he clearly said when he took the mantle at that handover ceremony at the Prime Minister's office earlier, I am from the right. Does this push Emmanuel Macron towards the right? After he splintered the left, he was part of that old socialist government, he was economy minister, some have followed him. Is he splintering the right, or is Macron moving towards the right?
Well, he has been appointed as the prime minister to conduct the action of the government, okay? So this action of the government is what is the policy and the contract with the nation that Emmanuel Macron was elected on. So I do not figure that he could, conduct a right-hand policy and politics, rather than the government.
How do you see it concretely? Just to explain to our viewers, do you see the ministers who might come from the Les Républicains party leaving and joining? Do you see it more as an alliance between the two parties?
No, actually, we are not here in a cohabitation, or we are in a different scheme.
So
we have appointed knowingly.
So you're looking to absorb
prime minister
those people.
That is, yes, we're looking to absorb these people. I'm not sure whether it's the aim we are trying to point here, but what we are sending as a message to the nation is that we are definitely a party that does not dwell on breakdown between the left and the right. We definitely think that the good initiatives and ideas are on both sides, and we have clever people in the country.
All right, but now we're getting into the nitty-gritty of it, and so it's the question of, is it going to be an alliance, or is it all going to be under one label?
Actually, it's the label is the one of the party we are. We are the Republicans, but the president is the president of the nation, of the French people. So he chose right-wing prime minister, and this prime minister has to assume, has completely to deal with the contract with the nation. So we have nothing to fear from or to wish. Actually, it's the prime minister of our country, and he will conduct with his prime ministers that he will appoint very soon the policy of the government and the contract we have defined clearly, and we have never given up on to have people joining us.
Right, to support the platform. Has Macron succeeded in driving the same wedge that he drove between the socialists, splitting between hard left and social democrats? Has he driven a wedge today within your party?
That's his aim. That's his tactical aim.
Has he succeeded?
Not yet. We'll see when the parliamentary elections take place. Because Edouard Philippe and the Prime Minister, as a second role, is also the leader of the parliamentary majority. So now we have a Prime Minister, but we have no parliamentary majority yet. We'll have to wait for the legislative elections, and we'll see what happens then.
The problem with being an optimist, of course, is you can have your hopes dashed. Ludovic Subran, is this a watershed moment for France, or is it all going to end in gridlock?
I'm an optimist, right? So I think it's two things. I think it's fascinating how much this center vortex is getting organized. I think, when we've been waiting for that moment for quite some time, to have someone that actually supersedes the past. I'm personally very thrilled to have someone that the French, so it's true, in the beginning only 1 out of 5 French people voted for Emmanuel Macron, but in the second round, of course, he won, and more importantly, he raised to the function. So I'm very happy to see that smart people want to converge to support someone who wants to do good things for the country. I don't think it's done yet. It's a double trigger election, as you know. There is the legislative elections in June. There is also the movement from the street. We've heard already a lot of people being completely against the labor code changes. Also the idea that we need to move faster when it comes to reducing the corporate taxes and maybe redistribute. So it won't be a walk in the park, but I think very interestingly, he certainly appointed a prime minister, and tomorrow he'll appoint a government that will be quite stable no matter the results of the election, because Edouard Philippe is not, going after re-election in his own legislature, and so as a mayor of a big city in France, he's above a little bit whatever the problem could be in the General Assembly.
He'll be there for more than 5 weeks, is what you're saying.
I think so.
If Macron gets a majority, if he doesn't,
the Prime Minister
different story.
Bruno Bernard,
he's still in the party. He's still in your party. So why will he have to go?
No, he's not stealing anything.
The conversation.
He's still in the party.
He's actually appointed a member of Les Républicains. Yeah. That's it for the moment.
So he's in the party.
He's in your party.
He's in my party. So you mean my party? So the Les Républicains are actually in power because they have the prime minister.
No, but meaning that if the Républicain wins the legislature, you could keep the guy.
Yeah.
That's not the plan. But yeah, good idea.
And we'll know more. We'll know more.
Scoop here.
We'll know more come Tuesday and the nomination of the government of the cabinet. Bruno Bernard, I want to thank you. I want to thank as well Ludovic Subran, Daniel Stelter in Berlin, Claire TASSADIT-HOUD. Well, thank you as well. Good luck with your legislative election campaign.
Thank you.
Stay with us. There's more to come. More coverage on this story and more here on France 24.